to the courage to be courageous.
This is Dan Boland, and I'm the host of a podcast called The Courage to Be Courageous, where people come from all over the world to share their fear and how they were able to embrace it and use courage to get through it as well. I think we have a very special guest today. It's John Kazanjian.
Thank you.
And it took me a while to get it, but I got it. And I think he has a very fascinating story, and I'm looking forward to have him to share the courage that he's had to be able to get through the many things in his life as well. So welcome, John, to my podcast. It's
Thank
a pleasure
you, Dan.
to have
It's
you.
great to be here, and I welcome the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I do too. Let's talk a little bit about your education and your family life.
All right. I grew up in New Jersey, and I had a family of very loving parents. My father, all he cared about was that I was healthy and happy. My mom was the driver. She wanted me to go to the best schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so she pushed hard on my achieving a great education. So after 2 years in the whole political science realm, I applied to the School of Landscape Architecture. During that time, we had a family accident in 1967, and my mother was killed. My father was driving. My brother and sister were in the car, and it really kind of devastated the family.
Of course.
But interestingly, that was during the summer of between my junior and senior year. And so I handled all of that while I still went to school, and I made the dean's list on top of doing all the hospital visits and all. And my professors wrote a qualifying letter to Harvard Graduate School of Design, and I was accepted there. And so my mission or my fulfillment to my mother's goals was very gratifying. And there at Harvard, I met some absolutely incredible people. Another sense of my independence was that I felt that I didn't want to go to work
For
at a
somebody
meager
else.
salary of $5,000 a year, even though I had a job offer from Philip Johnson, the renowned architect in New York City, and Lawrence Halpern's office as a landscape architect. But the offers were for $5,000 a year. And I thought, well, we can go get the contracts ourselves. And so we formed a partnership. We moved from Cambridge, Massachusetts. In Portland, we worked as a corporation called Mega Cofield Kazanjian, which was the name of our company. We also prefaced it with environmental planners. We worked for some of the premier developers in the Northwest. We actually led the first environmental planning laws and rules and regulations. I found that thrilling to be able to do. And I was just a young shit. I was 26, running in and out of the governor's office. But we created the first bottle bill that required recyclables for plastics and bottles with the 5-cent return on it. First one in the nation.
I want to compliment you on something, because it is courage to continue to go to Harvard and finish your degree when your mother had passed away. That took a hell of a lot of courage on your part. It also was a lot of courage for you to go out and form a partnership with three others, not knowing what would happen or not happen. I just think that's very courageous of you. And as you said earlier, it's because you're an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is someone goes out and makes things happen rather than someone says, what happened?
Right.
Entrepreneur makes things happen.
It's so true, Dan. Being an entrepreneur, you take risks.
Of course.
And you've got to have the courage to put yourself out there and attempt everything because it's all on you. We had no cash flow. unless we did something.
Yes.
Nobody paid our bills.
Mhm.
We had to actually create the contracts with the land developers or through the state of Oregon in order to get some cash flow going. And so and I've been an entrepreneur throughout my life and have made a fortune and lost fortunes, and there are ups and downs, but you just got to reinvent yourself. And I've had to do reinvention multiple times. So when you're up, it's great, but you know, Dan, nothing is forever. And you've got to really be ready for how it changes.
Yes.
And when you try to hold on to something for too long, then you tend to lose it because you're trying to maintain status quo and things change. That's not how the world or the universe works.
I think that is so insightful as well. Tell us a little bit about how your parents accepted you as coming out as gay, a relationship with your partner that died 6 years ago, and how you were able to get through all that.
My mother had passed before anything. I really didn't come out to my brother or my father until quite a bit later in life.
When did you know that you were different or gay? Was there?
Oh, I knew it when I was 14 in the Boy Scouts. That's an interesting story. I'm thankful that I didn't take that route, but to kind of raise money for my college during Rutgers,
Right.
I worked at a Boy Scout camp as a camp counselor, and I signed lots of merit badge cards. That's why my signature is such of a style. I would sign, I don't know, 500, 600 merit badge applications a week. You know, so my signature flair came out and was developed at that time. So I had done some professional training, and I had the opportunity to become a professional with the Boy Scouts of America. But I suspected that really wasn't going to be cool because I knew I was gay. I was attracted to a lot of the counselors that I was being trained with, and vice versa, but we never did anything.
Right.
And then knowing how the organization has kind of fell into question based on the leadership.
Yeah.
That was a good move on my part,
Yeah.
and one decision that I never regret.
Knowing that you were gay, knowing that you had same-sex attraction to men, tell us how that played out in the rest of your career.
Growing up in the 50s and 60s, being gay was really a taboo topic. And so coming from that culture, everything that I did really was to stay in the closet.
hidden, yeah.
And I lived a very straight-oriented life. And I dated women and I had sex with women. I never did anything at Harvard. But it was interesting that one of my partners from Harvard that I teamed up with as part of Miga Cofield Kazanjian had been married, and that didn't go well for the first year, and he came out as gay.
Did he share that with you?
Oh,
or
yeah, I knew.
Did you share with him that you were gay at that time?
He and his lover at the time would go through my closet and try to figure out clues as to whether I was or wasn't. But I really didn't start going out to the bars until I was 30 or 32, you know.
How did you meet Jack?
He picked me up at a gay bar. Actually, he mistaken me for somebody he thought he knew, but that was just a minor issue for a short period of time.
He thought you were someone different.
Yes.
And how long were you and Jack together?
35 years.
35 years.
Yeah, that night we met. We never separated. And we never had really an argument. We never.
But you would have times you would disagree.
Of course.
Yeah.
We'd disagree about which friends we wanted to hang with that night or who we were going to go to,
Yes.
who we would take to dinner. We
Right.
always hosted.
Do you think as the time went on, John, and you were together for 35 years, did your love even grow stronger over the years?
Oh, absolutely. Our souls were totally intertwined. And part of the loss and he was 13 years younger, so I had always had the expectation, and he did, that I would be the first one to leave.
Yes, right.
One time he told a friend, and I didn't know this until after he passed, that Jack said to them that his only goal in life was to keep John happy. And I thought, yes, he did. We had extra money at the time, and so we went shopping, and we ended up at a piano store. And I thought, oh, well, let's buy this grand piano. It'll look great in the new house. And I thought I was going to take lessons. Well, he blew my shit away. He sat down there, he played it, and he took ownership of it. And I thought, wow, what a talent. And he became a composer. He always had a goal of going to a David Bowie show. There was 125 salespeople that I managed, but one had big hair, and Jack says, I hear you're a famous guitarist. And so he pulled out Double Fantasy by John Lennon, and he goes, see, that's me, Earl Slick. One thing led to another. He became the lead guitarist for David Bowie, and there he was on all the albums.
Now, did Jack and Slick work together at all?
Yes,
they did.
So then he and Jack started writing music together. Jack was thrilled. We got free tickets through Slicky, and we traveled to London and
Wow.
Phoenix and Portland and wherever we could go to see a show.
It looks like Jack had his passion was really music.
Right.
Sounds where his passion was. Tell me how his loss, and he died.
What I've come to acknowledge is that it was his time to go, and that he had accomplished what he had come here for. There were a number of radio stations that played Bowie that also played interspersingly Jack's music.
Jack music. So.
And so they called it brain music.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was the kind of the tie-up that
Yes.
he accomplished what he needed to do. We were at a birthday party for May, and all my new business partners from cannabis, as well as my old timeshare partners, at the same event. And I was preparing my speech that I never gave. There were 100 people there, and he came down the stairs and he was green. And they said, you better take him. So we went to emergency. 95% of his liver was shot.
Ooh.
And he had black spots on his lungs and clots in his arteries on its way to the aorta. And that's when I thought, he's gone. He was okay with it. He said, I'm not going to do treatments. I'm not going to push this off. I'm ready to go. Give me morphine. Let me go. And in 3 weeks, after 2 weeks, we put him in hospice, and 3 weeks he was gone. So that was like somebody took a fucking 2x4 and cracked me on the backside of my head.
Yes. That had to be so painful for you, John.
And I thought, wow, because our souls were so entwined that even though I am an individual and I've always believed in my self-determination and my self-power, that I lost half of myself because it was just ripped away from me. And I really had trouble dealing with that.
But I think it took you a couple of years.
Oh, I'm really just now ready to kind of move on with my life.
What was it? Was there an event or a process that got you to move on with your life?
Yes, actually, I met a friend. Her name is Kelly Foy. She and Jack went to psychic school together back in the early 90s. And one thing led to another, and that's really what spurred Kelly and me to investigate what happens after life and how to deal with death. She had actually earned her bachelor's and her master's and then her doctorate in metaphysics.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened 6 years ago. For the last 4 years, Kelly and I have been collating all of our experiences into what we're now about to launch, what we call the Soul Intelligence System. Yeah, I've always believed that Earth is the testing ground and Earth is the hell. You know, there's no hell, there's no devil. You know, it's just right here, right now. And so this is the worst that it's going to get. And you can make a choice to struggle with it or learn about your soul and ask for its assistance to get through this life and get everything you want by tapping into your soul intelligence. Talking about past lives, one time I might have been 5 and I came downstairs and I declared to my mother, who was washing dishes with her back to me, and I said, you know, Mom, I was a king in my other life, in my earlier life. And she said, well, honey, I'm sorry to tell you, but you ain't a king in this life, so get fucking used to it.
Mothers have a way of putting us in order,
poignant.
don't they?
And I've always been curious to get through all the bullshit, you know, and I've always felt a direct connection to God without needing the church. And yet my brother and I were acolytes in the Episcopalian Church.
Oh, you were? Okay.
We grew up through the Armenian Orthodox Church. So we went to church. Our job was to count the number of people in the congregation so the minister could count out the appropriate amount of wafers and wine, pour out the wine for communion. And then they would administer communion. And I would sit there and I would watch the people coming up and kneeling and taking communion and getting up and walking away and feeling like euphoria that now whatever I did Saturday night really doesn't matter because I'm okay. And I thought, well, really?
That's an example of what organized religion
and
has done
that
to
comes
many
back
of us.
to, you know, cultural beliefs and family beliefs. And I've kind of gotten to the point with my new perspective that people have a hard time dealing with culture and who they are and who's the real me. Why am I here? What is my purpose in life? We have a veil put over us to kind of let us start fresh in this life in order to learn certain lessons that ultimately grow our soul. We come in with the veil, and I've always wanted to take that veil off. I wanted the answers right now. If we end this, let's just say, Soul Intelligence System, live life on your terms.
Excellent. What a great point. And that helped you tremendously to get through the death of Jack.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's obviously worked extremely well for you. John, it's been such a pleasure having you on my podcast. We'll look forward, hopefully, to be able to see you in the future many times. So
thank you.
Take care.